The demand for computing power has, I mean, it's always felt exponential, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But what happens when the goal isn't just, a faster phone or a better social media feed, but personal superintelligence for everyone?
Yeah.
That's the goal Meta has publicly set. And the energy required to power that vision, this always on, super high intensity processing, it's creating an immediate and just completely unprecedented demand for electricity.
Exactly. We're talking about a shift that requires these huge industrial scale power sources.
Sources that just don't exist in the right quantity yet.
And that is the central dilemma for really every big tech company right now.
Uh-huh.
They need this massive, relentless power, but they also have these corporate mandates to cut their carbon emissions.
So it forces a really tough calculation.
It does. How do you get thousands of megawatts of absolutely reliable, clean power online and do it fast?
And the answer they've landed on is, well, kind of surprising.
It really is. After this intense competitive RFP process, it turns out Meta is placing a massive foundational bet on nuclear power.
Which they describe as clean, dependable, and the ultimate source of what they call firm electricity.
Exactly.
Okay, so that is a compelling pivot, and it's what we're going to deep dive into today. We've analyzed the sources detailing Meta's strategy, especially their agreements with three specific partners.
Oklo, TerraPower, and Vistra.
Right. And our mission here is to map out exactly how Meta plans to build and buy up to 6.6 gigawatts of power by 2035.
And it's not just a procurement strategy, is it? It's really an acceleration strategy.
Yeah, they're trying to jumpstart the whole next generation of power.
That's the plan.
So let's start with the root cause of all this. The sheer, just insatiable hunger of modern AI. I mean, data centers have always used a lot of power, but why is AI so different? Why is this 247 requirement suddenly non-negotiable?
It all comes down to consistency. Think about what we call baseload electricity.
Okay.
It's the minimum amount of power you need running just to keep the entire system operating day and night, no matter what.
Like the baseline for a city to function.
Exactly that. And for a massive AI training model, that baseload is just extraordinarily high, and it can never, ever drop.
And that's the strategic justification for nuclear.
That's it. Look, renewables like wind and solar are, of course, critical parts of a clean grid, but they suffer from intermittency.
Right, when the wind stops or the sun goes down.
Their output drops to zero. And AI operations, which need this continuous error-free computation, they just can't tolerate those gaps. Nuclear delivers that consistent, non-stop power.
Such a firm power.
The perfect fuel for an always-on superintelligence infrastructure.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about predictability, not just sheer volume. But the sources we looked at also really emphasize that Meta is trying to be a responsible grid partner here. So are they just cutting in line and, taking power away from local consumers?
That's a critical question, and the sources really go to great lengths to emphasize that their strategy is designed to add capacity to the grid,
Yeah.
not just consume what's already there.
So they're paying the full cost.
The full cost. And the agreements are specifically structured to support the broader grid. So the investments are aimed at generating new power, not just pushing costs onto other people.
So they're funding the creation of new energy assets that everyone else can benefit from too. That's a very different model.
It's a fundamentally different model. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're buying the power, but they're also accelerating the creation of that power. And to hit that 6.6 gigawatt goal, they've split their approach into three pillars.
A mix of next-gen tech and investing in what already exists.
Exactly. It's a very pragmatic, decade-spanning strategy.
Let's get into that first pillar then, the advanced reactors. This is where it gets really interesting, where Meta starts acting almost like a huge venture capital fund for nuclear. Let's start with TerraPower.
Right, the company associated with Bill Gates.
That's the one.
So the TerraPower agreement is focused on their Natrium reactor design. The initial commitment is for 2 units, and they're expected to deliver a pretty significant chunk of power.
How much are we talking about?
Up to 690 megawatts of firm power, with delivery potentially as early as 2032.
Okay, but 2032 still sounds a ways off. And advanced nuclear projects in the U.S. have faced just decades of regulatory and construction risks.
They have.
Are the sources clear on how Meta's money actually solves those challenges?
Well, it certainly de-risks the financial side of things. You're right, nuclear builds are incredibly complex, but the real challenge for these next-gen developers is getting the massive long-term financing they need.
To get from a demonstration project to a commercial one.
Precisely. Meta's firm commitment, their capital, it provides that certainty. It's a huge market signal to investors and regulators that, you know what, gigawatt-scale deployment, is actually viable.
And 690 megawatts is just the start.
Just the start. The full framework in the source material covers the potential for up to 8 total Natrium units.
8? Wow.
Which would deliver 2.8 gigawatts of baseload capacity. That's nearly half of Meta's entire goal from this one partnership.
That is just staggering. But there's a detail buried in the sources about the TerraPower units that I found fascinating.
The storage, right?
Exactly. The 1.2 gigawatts of built-in energy storage. That feels like a complete game changer. How does that even work?
It is a massive technical advantage. So traditional nuclear plants, they just generate power, right?
Right.
The Natrium design has this innovative storage system that uses molten salt. This means the reactor can operate consistently, but instead of sending all its power to the grid right away, it can store heat energy.
So if the grid suddenly needs a surge of power...
Yeah, say during a heat wave or if a big wind farm goes offline, the reactor can dump that stored heat into its generation system and create an extra 1.2 gigawatts on demand.
Well, they're not just buying power, they're buying a hyper-reliable power source that also acts like a shock absorber for the whole regional grid.
Absolutely. That's exactly how the CEO of TerraPower, Chris Levesque, framed it. He said this isn't just a sales contract, it's an accelerator.
An accelerator for the whole industry.
Yes. He thinks it will hasten gigawatt-scale advanced nuclear deployment industry-wide in the 2030s. Meta is providing the blueprint.
Okay, let's move to Pillar 2, another major new build, the partnership with Oklo.
Right, this one's in Pike County, Ohio.
Yeah, an advanced nuclear technology campus, and the target date is even sooner, as early as 2030.
And this is a really strategically located campus. The 1.2 gigawatts of clean power from this site will flow directly into the PJM market.
For our listeners, PJM is what exactly?
PJM is this enormous grid operator. It covers 13 states across the Mid-Atlantic and Midwest, serving about 65 million people. So every gigawatt you add there is a serious injection of reliability.
Tell us about the Oklo technology itself.
It's equally cutting edge. They use something called the Aurora Powerhouse reactor.
Aurora Powerhouse?
Yeah, and the design is based on fast reactor technology with what they call inherently safe systems.
So what does inherently safe mean in this context?
It means the physics of the design ensures that if the system overheats or loses cooling, the reaction just naturally slows down.
So it reduces the risk of a meltdown without needing someone to, flip a switch.
Exactly. It doesn't need active intervention. And that addresses a lot of the public's apprehension about nuclear safety.
The sources also mention that Oklo can use repurposed fuel. Does that mean what I think it means? They're using old fuel rods.
That is a huge environmental and economic win.
Yeah.
And yes, repurposed fuel means they can take nuclear waste spent fuel from existing reactors and use it as fuel.
So they're recycling nuclear waste.
They are. It extracts the remaining energy, reduces the overall volume of waste we have to store long term, and it provides a nearly inexhaustible fuel source without new mining.
And I imagine a project like that has a big local impact, too.
Oh, huge. The sources emphasize thousands of construction jobs, hundreds of long-term operational rules in Ohio, plus all the tax revenue. It's really positioning the Midwest as a hub for this.
So Pillars 1 and 2 are the future. Pillar 3 with Vistra is about maximizing the present. How does that work?
It's all about stability and speed.
Yeah.
Building an advanced reactor takes a decade. Investing in existing plants can happen much sooner and gives you this massive, immediate return on reliable capacity.
So what are they doing?
Meta is signing these long-term, 20-year agreements to purchase over 2.1 gigawatts from Vistra's operating nuclear plants.
And that gives Vistra the financial certainty to keep those plants running for the long haul.
Exactly. The agreements cover power from existing plants in Ohio Perry and Davis-Besse.
Okay.
And crucially, the deal also funds capacity expansions at those two plants, plus the Beaver Valley plant in Pennsylvania. These expansions are called uprates.
Can you define an uprate for us quickly?
Sure. Think of it like a really meticulous engine refurbishment. It lets the plant operate at a higher capacity.
So you're not building a whole new building?
No, not at all. You're upgrading non-nuclear parts like turbines and generators. You're just squeezing more megawatts out of the existing licensed infrastructure.
How much more are we talking?
The planned uprates are expected to add about 433 megawatts of additional clean capacity, also within that critical PJM grid region.
It's impressive. They're tackling this from every angle, funding the future and maximizing the present. Let's connect this all back to Meta's actual physical footprint. 6.6 gigawatts is just an abstract number otherwise.
That's right. And this power isn't just flowing into some abstract cloud. It's geographically targeted to flow into the grids supporting Meta's biggest operations.
Like the Prometheus supercluster in New Albany, Ohio.
Specifically that, which is one of the largest AI data center facilities in the world.
So let's just step back and synthesize this. By 2035, you combine the new builds, the advanced reactors, the extended plant life. They expect all this to support up to 6.6 gigawatts.
Up to 6.6 gigaLoVU of clean, firm power.
I mean, that is more power than many small countries use. That number alone should, stop you in your tracks.
It's monumental. It positions Meta, as their chief global affairs officer said, as one of the largest corporate nuclear energy buyers in U.S. history.
This isn't just dipping a toe in the water.
No, this is a foundational energy shift for one of the world's most influential companies.
And it's important to frame this in their broader history, too, right? This wasn't a sudden panic decision. They've been working on clean energy for a while.
For a very long time. For the last decade, Meta's been one of the biggest corporate buyers of renewables. Nearly 28 gigawatts of wind and solar.
But that strategy worked for their general operations.
It worked great. But the sudden, extreme, and constant requirements of AI just fundamentally changed the power equation. It demanded a source that isn't intermittent.
So this is them just applying that same long-term planning approach to this new specific problem.
Exactly.
That raises a really interesting point about the broader relevance. It sounds like this investment actually benefits more than just Meta.
Oh, it has to. The scale is so large, it has these undeniable positive externalities. Beyond the jobs, you're injecting robust, firm baseload power into major grids like PJM.
And in a world with increasing grid instability and extreme weather, that's a huge deal.
Any investment that adds stable, always-on power helps stabilize the regional grids for everyone, far beyond the company's own needs.
So ultimately, the source material shows Meta solving two of the toughest modern problems at once. Scaling AI without losing reliability and doing it with low-carbon power that's always on.
And by mixing that investment in cutting-edge developers like Oklo and TerraPower with long-term support for existing plants with Vistra, they're making this massive bet.
A bet that nuclear is going to be the central pillar of the future clean grid.
And this emphasis on the long term, on the decade of planning required, that's the critical takeaway here. I mean, AI didn't ask nicely, did it? It created this sudden, massive, non-negotiable demand for power.
It forced their hand.
It really did. It forced them to invest in and accelerate the only technology that could provide this kind of stability on a clean basis. So here's a final provocative thought for you to consider.
Okay.
If one of the world's largest tech companies has to invest in and accelerate advanced nuclear development over the next 10 to 15 years just to keep its data centers running reliably, what does that imply for the global energy demands of all the other scaling AI developers, the ones who don't have Meta's capital or foresight? What energy infrastructure will they rely on? And what will that competition for baseload power look like globally by 2035?
It makes you realize the future of computing isn't just about silicon, it's about the bedrock energy beneath it. I am still all up on that 1.2 gigawatts of built-in storage. That's the real technical leap we'll be watching. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Meta's nuclear frontier.